Sheldon Keefe speaks out after a Game 7 loss, and what he says won't sit well with Leafs fans. And Bruins head coach Jim Montgomery speaks out on how a former NHL coach and former Toronto Maple Leafs coach gave him advice heading into Game 7. We'll get into this later on this episode. Before I start, I just want to say to thousands of you watching that aren't subscribed, if you're enjoying this daily NHL content and you never want to miss another episode, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button. We'll be all season long giving you updates from around the league. But with that, let's hop straight into the first topic today, which is Jim Montgomery gets advice ahead of defeating the Leafs. Now, this is not going to sit well with fans, and I wasn't happy to see it, but we've seen Luke Fox come out on social media and say last night Jim Montgomery got encouragement from Jon Cooper, who is the Tampa Bay Lightning's head coach, and advice from former Leafs coach Mike Babcock before Game 7. We do see Montgomery just kind of speaking in the interview and saying, I had a real good discussion with Mike Babcock before Game 6 about owning the moment and how to push your team through. Obviously, Mike Babcock was the Toronto Maple Leafs head coach in 2015-16 until 2019-20 when he was fired midway through the season for Sheldon Keefe. We've seen Babcock come in, lead this team to 3 straight first-round exits and 1 season where they didn't make the playoffs. And Casey, what's your thoughts on just Babcock giving encouraging advice to a Bruins head coach?
I mean, Mark, it's kind of crazy to think about that. You need advice from two, established coaches to try to beat this Toronto Maple Leafs team. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous in my mind. I'm not gonna lie. I think, obviously this Game 7 was big. Boston, obviously they lost the 3-1 comeback last year. Toronto's trying to finally win that Game 7, and then you have guys like Mike Babcock, a guy who coached your team for so long, kind of betray you and go out and give some advice to the Boston Bruins head coach. And then you have Jon Cooper, a guy who has faced off against Toronto a lot of times, go out behind your back and give some advice to the Bruins head coach as well. So, I mean, I understand why this won't sit well with Leafs fans because, you don't need to do that. You don't need that advice, whatever it may be, to beat this team. Obviously, if you're a good coach, you know what you're going to do already. So I don't understand why this happened. I don't know why he needed to talk to these two coaches and get some advice from them. I guess maybe the nerves were setting in, the anxiety was setting in that he didn't want to do a 3-1 comeback at back-to-back years. So I don't know, man. It kind of doesn't sit well with me, and I'm a Montreal fan, but I mean, I feel for your Leafs Station again today. I mean, it really sucks seeing your team go out that way, and now hearing that the other coach had some advice from two very established coaches in the NHL is really tough to hear.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Babcock couldn't find a way to get out of the first round with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it seems like he helped another team get them out of the first round against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Classic Bab style. I guess he never wants to see any Leaf success, even when he was the head coach of the team. But just seeing the former coach Babcock just coming out saying, hey, we're going to give advice to this other team, we're going to help this other team, doesn't sit well with me. It does seem like this old boys club of the older NHL coaches really hold tight together. And obviously, Sheldon Keefe is not a part of this. I mean, we partly seen Kyle Dubas not be a part of this either when the Generals Old Boys Club kind of got their meetings as he was the most claimed general manager in the league. If they placed a player on waivers, it would immediately be claimed by someone else. We've seen Santi, I think his name was, a European goalie, get signed middle of the season, randomly picked up, brought over, put into waivers, immediately claimed by the Arizona Coyotes. This year, we've seen a guy like Brad Treliving place guys like Bobby McMahon, Samsonov. These guys went down, no one touched them. So it seems like this club of the tight-knit group of coaches don't like Sheldon Keefe, and I'm sure a lot of fans are going to say, hey, good, we don't care either. But this does lead into Montgomery saying that he received the text from Tampa Bay head coach Jon Cooper, and just kind of helping hand in eliminating Toronto is certainly the thing that's going to sting the Leafs fans the most, and I couldn't agree with this more. I mean, it does hurt a lot seeing Jon Cooper, who the Leafs finally beat and caught lightning in the bottle last season, come back, haunt the team even though they're not in the playoffs either, and then once again another coach that's not in the league haunt the Leafs by coming back and helping. But we'll get straight into the second topic today, which is Sheldon Keefe speaks out. And I'm not a big fan of these comments. I'm not a fan of this comment at all. Just let us know down in the comments. But Sheldon Keefe did his post-game interview, his exiting interview, whatever you want to call this, and said, when teams play the Leafs, they set up the game for the Leafs to beat themselves. I mean, this quote itself, you can look at it in many ways. I mean, you could put the blame on him for being outcoached in almost every game he plays. You could put this up on the system not being good enough. And just Casey, what's your thoughts on this quote itself?
I mean, it's kind of a shocking quote to come out of your head coach. I mean, saying that the team's coach to let the Leafs like beat themselves is kind of a crazy quote to say as the current head coach of that team. I mean, I kind of when my first reaction to this when I first seen this was he knows he's done. I think that comment right there means he knows he's done being the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It just seems like that. I feel like if you knew you were staying around, you wouldn't say something like that because it's kind of putting some blame on yourself by saying that. Because if you know that other teams are coaching for your team to beat itself, then there needs to be a solution there. There needs to be a fix that says, hey, teams keep doing this every game, every game. How are we going to fix this? And it just doesn't seem like the Toronto Maple Leafs coaching staff found this fix throughout the entire season, and it just led to them losing, obviously, in Game 7 yet again.
Yeah, that's the big thing. You see other coaches making these adjustments. We've seen Jim Montgomery make multiple adjustments, putting different players around the lineup, switching lines up, putting players in and out of this team. And we've seen Sheldon Keefe do a tiny bit of this, but it wasn't to the extent of what Boston did. We've seen Boston's morale raise when they would start putting David Pastrnak with Brad Marchand. But we've seen Sheldon Keefe try to fix these lines, and it just didn't spark anything. He didn't make the changes. He waited till the end of the season to really try to figure out what he wanted to do. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Yes, he was dealing without William Nylander for a few games, Austin Matthews, Joseph Woll going down, Samsonov starting, whatever it might be. He didn't get dealt the best hand of cards, but you need to figure out how to make moves on the fly, how to change things up. And it seems like the Leafs coaching staff really couldn't get this, and especially on the power play. You can see Keefe also say you got to be really patient and earn the offense. Now, obviously, you need your special teams to be different, and they weren't able to do this. The Toronto Maple Leafs power play, like I said, was 1 for 22 or 1 for 23, whatever it might be. It's not even worth talking about at this point. But just what's your thoughts on the power play coaches not being able to get anything going, especially with a group that has about 40 million tied up between four forwards?
Yeah, I mean it's really tough to see because obviously when you look at it on paper, the Toronto Maple Leafs power play should be one of the best in the league, and they should be converting on most of their chances because obviously they have guys like Morgan Riley, Austin Matthews, the best goal scorer in the league. So especially William Nylander too. You have both of these guys who can put one in the back of the net on the power play, and to see it kind of go unsuccessful in the series is really kind of shocking. I mean, it kind of shows you got to give the benefit of the doubt to the other team here how good that Boston's penalty kill was during this series, but you should be able to find a tweak in that when you're watching it on the bench, saying, "Wow, we're 1 for 23 right now. Like we need to find a fix for this power play," and then not really being able to find that fix is kind of sad to see as well. But I also kind of want to jump back to Sheldon Keefe right quick because there's something that during watching this series as an outsider kind of looking in that I noticed was you see Jim Montgomery on the Boston Bruins going up to his players on the bench, tapping them on the back saying, come on, we need to go. Or like you see him with the iPad saying you should have went this, should have did this. But you barely ever see a camera shot of Sheldon Keefe doing these things. So not saying that Sheldon Keefe is a bad coach. These two coaches have two different coaching styles. I think that if Sheldon Keefe goes to another team like the San Jose Sharks or any other team, I think he will be a fantastic coach. I just think this Toronto Maple Leafs team right now needs a coach that is more vocal on the bench and that will go up to him and say, hey, you shouldn't have done that there. Why are you doing that? Sit him for a shift or whatever. Even if it's Austin Matthews. If Austin Matthews is coming in and just firing him on net and missing the net, why do you keep putting him back out there every shift? They kind of need someone who holds the players accountable. And obviously, as a Montreal Canadiens fan, I hated Ducharme for doing this, but I think that that this is what the Leafs team needs, because not just sitting players out of the lineup, but just sitting them first shift saying, okay, you need to get going here. You can't be doing this stuff. We're down a goal. We need to win this game, or it's a level game. We need a goal. You need to, try to get your best opportunity you can. And I think this is what really would help this Toronto Maple Leafs team out.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And one thing I wanted to focus on the word was the word you use, accountability. We seen Jim Montgomery come out after game 6 and he sat down in front of the reporters and said, hey, Pasta has to be better. He's not playing to what we want. He needs to step up. Guess what he did? He went out and scored the Game 7 overtime winner. Obviously, Lindholm had an outstanding pass into the corner off the boards, but he held accountability to his top star players. What do we see Sheldon Keefe do when Mitch Marner goes out, skates around, doesn't do anything? Nothing. He gets rewarded with playing the top line again. What do we see if Auston Matthews goes out and doesn't look well, doesn't play well? Nothing. He continues to play the top line. There's no accountability with Sheldon Keefe behind this Leafs bench that's going to motivate this team. It leads to the power play of Keefe not being looking at these guys and saying, hey, I know you're making $12 million. You're not performing. Let's put you on the second unit. The only changes we had to this power play was when Auston Matthews was out. We've seen Bertuzzi come up. When Nylander was out, we've seen Domi come up. They didn't do anything to switch this. Matthew Knies, who in my opinion was by far and away the best forward this entire series, next to a guy like William Nylander, seen the second power play unit the entire series. We've seen Domi come up, yes, but why wasn't Domi and Knies given a chance? If you're 1 for 21 on the power play at 4.8% in the entire series after being 24% on the season, why did you just not look at this team and say, hey, something needs to be changed? After game 2, when you're 0 for 8, why not change it? Game 3, game 4. He had 7 games to fix his power play, to try anything, and he just neglected it. He didn't hold accountable to the stars, and in my opinion, it just didn't sit right. Obviously, we can look at the Leafs in their last 7 consecutive wins, winner takes all playoff games. They're currently 0-7. Sheldon Keefe was the coach for 4 of these: the game against Boston, Tampa, Montreal, which I'm sure Casey is smiling right now about, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. And Jay Fresh just kind of said, if you're using a probability based on betting lines, there was about a 1 in 167 chance of them losing all 7 of these games. In very least fashion, of course, the number 67 has to be in there, since that's the last time we won the cup. And it feels like the last time we'll ever win a cup at this rate. But just what's your thoughts on all these collapses? Sheldon Keefe not holding players accountable, just everything in between.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, that Montreal Canadiens comeback was all time for me. Like when they went down in that series, I said there is no way they're done. I lost all hope, and what happened? They came back and win in classic Leafs fashion, them kind of choking, and that's kind of what's been happening over these last couple of years. Is the players have a fantastic regular season, and then once playoff time comes, you kind of just see William Nylander be that guy. And I think that, like you said earlier, like we both said, like you gotta held these people accountable, even if they're making whatever it is, 11, 12, $13 million a year. You need to instill that in them. Is if you have a bad game, there needs to be repercussions. And I think this is the only reason why the Toronto Maple Leafs have had little success in the playoffs, is because we see people throwing temper tantrums on the bench, and there's no repercussions from that. We have a guy like William Nylander who sat the first couple of games, come back in to this on the bench and kind of take a hold of this and be like, guys, like this isn't junior hockey anymore. We need to play. Like we can't be, getting upset. We need to focus on the game. And I think if they had a coach like William Nylander there, this wouldn't have happened. And I think that maybe they wouldn't have went down 3-1 in this series. Honestly, that's my honest opinion.
Yeah, the biggest thing is you look at this Leafs team, and it seems like Sheldon Keefe has just lost the voice of the room. Obviously, bringing guys like Ryan Reeves, that has been outstanding in that locker room. You guys seen on Twitter him in the hallways. He was scratched for 2 straight games. He still stood in the hallways, fired the boys up, did his pregame routine with the team to make them stay locked in. Then you would cut the cameras to Sheldon Keefe in the locker room saying, hey, we got here, let's go out and have fun. He needs to hold accountability. If someone of the star core 4, whatever you want to call them, core 5, core 12, whatever it is, if someone in this top 6 is not performing, they're not putting in the effort, put them on the 4th line. Give someone in the bottom six the opportunity. We've seen guys like Holmberg look great during this game. We've seen guys like Yarncroke work his ass off. We've seen so many of these players want to get the opportunity in the top six and really outplayed a lot of guys. Guys like Connor Dewar looked a lot better than a lot of people in the top six. Not going to call any names out, but someone did leave past it wide open on the boards, cutting down in game 7. But the biggest thing with this is these guys want the opportunity. They want to prove their worth, but they don't give the opportunity with these star players because there is zero accountability. We could go on for hours about this, so I'm just going to leave that topic for now. Let us know down in the comments what's your thoughts about the zero accountability from a guy like Sheldon Keefe. What's your thoughts in the comment? What's your thoughts about the villain Mike Babcock coming in, striking the Leafs while cheering for the Bruins, it seems like? Let us know down in the comments. But speaking of comments, we'll get into everyone's favorite topic, which is comments of the day. The comment today comes from Alex. He says, impressed by Benoit. Just wanted to put this in here because there wasn't a lot of positive comments on our last video. Benoit has been outstanding. I think he was just a diamond in the rough. He was a guy that the Anaheim Ducks let walk into free agency as an RFA. The Leafs picked him up, gave him the 1-year deal. He fit perfectly after a bit of a slow preseason, and now we have him for multiple seasons with a guy like Jake McCabe that looks like our best shutdown pairing. Let us know down in the comments. You could be featured on the next episode of Hat Trick HQ. While you're down there, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, comment, share this with your friends. We'll be back for another episode either later today or tomorrow. But with that, I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Casey. Have a good one.